Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Sam Shames. When I was a Division I All-American athlete, I was hyper-focused and I was able to take consistent action that allowed me to be one of the best in the country at what I did. Well, for years after I was done competing, I just struggled to stay focused on my goals day in and day out. I was easily distracted, so I wasn't able to stay consistent, the kind of consistency that you need to have to achieve goals that are meaningful to you. It was discouraging for me. I felt like I was just slipping kind of into mediocrity. Then, after interviewing some of the highest performers in the world, Olympians, CEOs, billionaires, best-selling authors, I discovered how they do it. I discovered 18 powerful and sometimes weird tactics that they use to stay focused at work, focused on the right things while also living a balanced life. And if you start using probably just 3 of these today, you're going to get more done in the next 8 hours. I promise. This is not tomorrow, not next week. These will work today. I guarantee it. It's like magic, but they're real world solutions to it people like you and me want. The ability to stay focused, avoid distraction, and be consistent. I use at least 4 of them every day and have used all of them at some point. And now I'm able to stay focused while I'm at work and get probably 50 to 100% more done each day. I'm more present when I'm home with my wife and 4 kids. And the result is I have a stronger relationship with my family. And I'm still able to achieve incredible goals like being selected to give a TEDx talk at one of the biggest TED events in the world, like launching a podcast and talking to A-list guests and running a half marathon, all of this while having a full-time job that includes frequent travel, working nights and weekends, and all that good stuff. So you're going to find solutions on this list that are going to surprise you. Grab your copy of the 18 Tactics to Staying Focused at Work. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/focus. That's jimharshawjr.com/focus. Sam is an entrepreneur, engineer, and member of the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. He's a co-founder of Ember Labs, where he's working on helping people use the power of personalized temperature to feel more comfortable in their own skin. He's a graduate of MIT with a degree in materials science and engineering and a minor in energy studies. While at MIT, Sam was a member of the wrestling team where he was a 4-time NCWA All-American and a 2013 national champion. He's also run marathons, ultramarathons. He's done all kinds of great things, and we're going to talk about a handful of those here in this show. As usual, if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, or if you hear something you like but you don't have time to write it down, make sure you grab your free copy of the action plan. Just go to jimharshawjr.com/action. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jim. Really excited to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about your background. So where'd you grow up and kind of a brief story of how you got from there to where you're at now?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts, which is a suburb outside of Boston, and kind of had the typical suburban childhood. So a lot of time kind of playing outside, going for bike rides with friends, really into sports growing up, baseball, football, kind of everything. Growing up, I was also the smallest and the youngest kid in my grade. So I think that's one thing that really led me towards wrestling, where, you can be successful even despite your size. And, wrestling was really the first thing that I wanted to be good at, to the point where I was willing to make sacrifices and cut out things like socializing or video games or TV. And that really taught me a lot about work ethic. And I ended up having a good amount of success in high school, but really found out, too, that I could carry over that work ethic from wrestling into areas like academics and other extracurriculars. And, I think that combination helped me get into MIT, where I was really lucky to be surrounded by a lot of really bright people. And, that kind of led me toward the path I was on today with Ember Labs.
And you mentioned you went, being at MIT, being surrounded by a lot of really amazing people. I talk with a lot of my coaching clients about having an environment of excellence, and you've been through Reveal Your Path, so about the importance of surrounding yourself with people who hold themselves to a higher standard. And I went to a great school at University of Virginia, and all the years that I was here was the #1 public school in the country. And actually, just today I read it, we're number 3 now. Bummer, but there's 2 schools tied in front of us, and then UVA's right there at number 3. So it was a great school, great education, great athletic department. That was like this environment of excellence where you're surrounded by these amazing people. But MIT is just next level stuff. And I was actually, before the interview here, Sam, I looked up MIT grads on the 2017 Forbes 30 under 30 list, and there's different 30 under 30 lists. So that you're under energy, your energy list you made was for energy, but there's like 30 this year. So what was it like being around other people at MIT who just want to change the world? How's that influenced you?
Really good question. I think initially, freshman year, you kind of look around and, it's a little intimidating, honestly, that you see all these people and you're like, wow, everyone just kind of seems smarter than me, especially, my experience in high school and a lot of people who come to MIT, they're used to being the kid everyone else comes to for help and being the kind of star academic performer. And then now you're in an environment where everyone is that. So initially there was definitely an adjustment period. But what I learned is, one, everyone there is really collaborative. So, they view it as let's all help each other be more successful. And then 2, what you find is that over time you gain your confidence. It's just like, in athletics when you go up and level up in a competition. There's an adjustment period, but with the right attitude, you can find out that you're really just helps you learn faster. I remember my freshman year, we took our first physics test, and the class average on this test was a 47.
Wow.
And the lowest passing grade
Percent?
was the lowest passing grade was a 32 because they scaled it. And,
wow.
I think that was really a wake up call for all of us of the, habits and study routines we had in high school. We needed to level up them. But what you find is, you go to the office hours, you meet with the professors, you find your friends and form a study group, and together you're all able to kind of help each other raise the level. And, next thing you know, by the end of freshman year, by the time you're an upperclassman, you're solving these problems that a few years before you would have thought, man, I could never do this. And, I think most of all, when you're in that environment, you see everyone who's really passionate about trying to do something cool with technology and trying to improve the world in some way. And you just kind of say, hey, if this person can do it, why can't I?
It's interesting. It's important to note that you don't have to go to MIT to change the world. Obviously, a lot of people went to a lot of other different schools. There are people who never went to college. So I just want to sort of put that asterisk before I ask this next question, Sam. What if you didn't go to that school, right? I think you'd still be successful. Who knows where you'd be or what you'd be doing right now, because you just have a mindset that where you push yourself. But I mean, how do you feel like you would have been had you gone? Let's say you didn't go to college, right? You just decided to not go to college. How would that have affected you? I mean, how much is that environment important, right? Because I mean, you could have gone to a lot of different schools, or maybe just go to another really good school, but maybe it was more cutthroat as opposed to collaborative. I mean, how important is that to have that environment of excellence?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And I completely agree with your statement that you don't need to go to MIT to change the world. Anyone can change the world. It's just about seeing something that you want to be different and taking action on that. In terms of, my own life and my own trajectory, I didn't expect to get into MIT when I applied. It was definitely a long shot, but I was really lucky that it turned out in the way it did. In terms of where I would be, I think, I would still probably be trying to do something entrepreneurial, because even from a young age, I could never imagine myself working for other people. But I think what it does is it kind of helps you maybe be a little further along, in that you're almost like, you're starting at, level 10 or something because of the resources that MIT can put behind you. So I think that, it's just maybe gives you more support at the beginning of the journey. And it's obviously a big credibility booster. But, most entrepreneurs I know, most people I know, they didn't go to that school, and, they're still very successful in their careers. So like you said, I think it's much more about, what is the idea that takes a hold of you, and that when you are working on, you lose track of time. And, there's resources out there. It's never been more accessible. The magic of the fact that, we literally have the world's information in our smartphones, in our pockets. If you want to go make a change, you can do it. And, again, I think MIT helps you see the scale of change that is possible, but, you still start small and you work your way up.
And you mentioned that activity. What is that activity that when you do it, you lose track of time? That's like being in this, it's been defined as the flow state. Like, how do you get there? How do you find that for the listener who's going, yeah, I don't really know what that is. Or maybe it's, when I'm watching football on Sunday afternoon or something like that. I just don't have, I don't know what that thing is right now. I mean, how do you find it? Or what about the person who says, yeah, but I can't make money doing that? I mean, what do they do?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, I'm certainly not an expert on this matter, but I think, the starting with what do you do for fun is a good place to start, whether that's watching football, playing video games, or exercising. And then I think you need to go find role models, and whatever that field is, there are people who are making money off that, whether it's like sports broadcasting or esports or personal trainers that, again, through the magic of the internet, you have an incredible, basically network of people who can be your role models from afar. And, in the same way I was able to do that with people in the field of science and engineering and in entrepreneurship and in wrestling, I think that's a really good place to start. And if you don't know what you do for fun, or, you're not satisfied with that, then I think you need to just try things, like literally make a list of, what are things that maybe sound appealing, or, who are people you look up to? Maybe it's, a star chef on the Food Network, or, maybe it's just the person who volunteers for the local Little League. But, I think it's just about, really casting a wide net.
Yeah. I mean, the key thing that he's saying there for the listeners is taking action, actually thinking about it, stop, think about it, and then take action. Sam, you recently wrote an article post on LinkedIn. Now you put it on Medium, and it's going kind of viral here lately. And you wrote about imposter syndrome, and I think it's struck a chord. And for a guy like you to say this, I'm going to quote you from the article. I thought it was really, really revealing to have this kind of vulnerability and just to put this out there. You said, quote, "I have imposter syndrome. Even as a white male, Jewish, MIT grad working in tech, I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, and that every other founder deserves to be in that room but me." That's pretty telling. And you're also a guy who's, completed marathons. You're a great wrestler. I mean, you have all these reasons to be, brimming and overflowing with confidence. And it was interesting, the graphic from the graphic from that. Actually, matter of fact, I'm going to share that graphic. I'm going to put a link to this article in the action plan for the listener. So jimharshawjr.com/action. Just grab the action plan from this episode. There's an interesting graphic, and it's like a bunch of, sort of stick figures, and all of them having sort of a thought bubble above the head saying something to the effect of, why does everybody look like they belong here but me, or something to that effect. And it's really interesting. So how can somebody like you have imposter syndrome?
Yeah, that's a really, good question. And, when I wrote the post, I certainly didn't necessarily expect that it would have the reception it did. It was just something that, I wanted to be honest with about myself. But specifically in the post, I write about my first tech conference that I went to for Ember Labs, and just looking around and seeing every other founder and company that was there that was further along in development than us, that had raised more money than us, that had a bigger team than us, and just kind of by every metric we were behind. And what's interesting is, it's the same experience I had when I got to MIT, and I see all the other freshmen, and they are taking upper level classes already, or they built these cool robots when they were in high school, and I had really done none of that. And it's the same experience I had too in wrestling when I would, trying to place at the All-State tournament and everyone else was belonging to these wrestling clubs and had more matches than me. And, I think it's just realizing that no matter what you're doing, if you're doing it for the first time and if it's challenging, you're going to feel like you don't belong. There's kind of the universal voice in your head that says, no, you can't do this. That kind of places self-doubt. And, I think calling it out by name is the first step towards changing that conversation and saying, yes, I'm afraid. Yes, I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, I don't know if this is going to succeed. But the bigger failure is not trying. It's not showing up. It's it's staying silent. It's not raising your hand. And, I've been lucky that, because of I think the role models I had starting in wrestling and then in academics that, that was kind of ingrained into me that, the only failure is not trying, which I know is something you guys talk a lot about on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You talk about having role models and these sort of past experiences and these people in your life. And it goes back to, again, I keep referring to it, but it's the environment of excellence. It's right. It's surrounding yourself with the right people who hold you to a high standard, and you kind of look around the room and you go, wow, all these people are pushing themselves to a high level. I can do that too. I should do that too. Having role models, having mentors, having people who can either guide you or push you. I mean, that's the role of a coach in athletics, and we all understand that in athletics, but most people don't have a coach in life, or they don't invest in that in their life, whether it's financially or invest the time to seek out a mentor or put together a mastermind group. A lot of people don't do it. And because of it, they feel, well, that imposter syndrome that we all have it at some level. We all have it. They let that hold them back, and it doesn't have to hold you back.
Well said. Yeah, I think, like you said, the real key is just taking the time to explore your feelings, to write them down, to tell someone, and then, starting the process of improving your self-talk of saying, yes, I feel like everyone's a better salesperson than me, or, stronger than me, or everyone, else has been in many different plays, but, everyone was a beginner at some point. That's the truth. Whether you're, Richard Branson once started his first company. Derek Jeter once swung a baseball bat for the first time. And, that's just the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. Great examples. So you go on to graduate from MIT and build this really cool business, this really cool company you co-founded. And we're going to talk about the gadget you guys are going to be launching here shortly. Actually, by the time we publish this, you will have launched it. So we'll have information about that in the action plan, jimharshawjr.com/action, to get access to this really cool gadget that we're going to talk about here in a minute. But along the way, building this cool company, you've got, been on the Today Show, et cetera, and you guys have stumbled, right? You've had things. You told me Emailgate. So tell us about Emailgate, because I think it's interesting I want the listener to understand that even the people who are uber successful stumble and do those things that they get red in the face and their palms sweat and things like that. So tell us about Emailgate.
For sure. Yeah. And I mean, this is, a classic, another example of going back to imposter syndrome. And this took place the summer after my senior year at MIT. So we were actually doing an entrepreneurship program that MIT ran. And so we were really surrounded by great mentors and people giving us good advice. And, we still made a pretty dumb mistake in hindsight. And what we were trying to do is, we were trying to save some money and not have to pay for an email mailing list service. And the way we were trying to do that is we were trying to send our email list through MIT, which is already, not legal because MIT is a nonprofit and you can't use their resources for commercial activity. But so we had at this point maybe a 5,000 person email list, and we had set it up where we were going to mail them all out through MIT servers. But the mistake we made was we didn't BCC everyone on our list. So when anyone replied to our email, it went to all 5,000 people. And what happened was, in the course of a couple of hours, we accidentally sent 200,000 plus emails through MIT server until the IT people actually shut us down and sent us a very sternly worded email of what are you doing? This was super public. Everyone's replying on the email saying, I think this is going to everyone. People were all posting on our Facebook page and on our Twitter. And, it's just a classic example of, of just rushing to do something and, not really double checking and then making a really public embarrassment. And, we had to apologize afterwards and people were understanding. But I think it just shows that, we were honest, that we were clearly not professionals. We were clearly learning about this process. And, that's just one of many mistakes we've made. But that was, maybe one of our most public and certainly one of the first.
So what was the moment like? Like whenever somebody pressed send on the email, like, okay, let's make this thing a go. You press go, you press send. And how long did it take before you realized that you didn't BCC everybody and that this was going to be a problem?
It was probably within like the first 2 or 3 minutes. And then, because we saw that like, oh my God, it was going.
You can't stop it at that point.
No, we couldn't do anything about it. So we were like trying to tell people, don't reply. But, meanwhile, everyone's like, oh, your list is broken. All of our users too, they were getting like, in the span of that 2 hours, they got like 50, or 100 emails. And so they were all upset with us. Like, what are you doing spanning our inbox? And these are the people who, were our first supporters. And so we really had our foot in our mouth in that one.
Yeah. What was that moment like at Ember Labs? Were you guys just cringing and cursing and waiting for this thing the tidal wave just to kind of subside?
We were in lab at MIT and, again, we didn't know how to stop it. So we were just kind of lucky that eventually the server people, the people at the tech support figured it out and they cut us off. But we were just like, oh my God, everyone's going to be sharing this. No one's going to take us seriously. We've shredded all our credibility. That MIT might kick us out of this program. And, it turned out that everyone was pretty understanding. Both MIT, yeah. They're like, well, next time you can't do this, certainly. But, people realize like, you got to try things and be willing to make mistakes. And Luckily our users and the administration were supportive of that. But I just remember sitting in lab with horrified looks on our faces as we realized like we're just reading everyone's responses and 10 people being like, you forgot to you messed up. You didn't do reply all.
That's painful. So there was another one as well. You mentioned, Sam, about some of the soldering problem you have. Can you share that?
Yeah, so this was, I actually wrote another LinkedIn post about this, but this was actually a $27,000 mistake. So, that for any company is a lot of money, but as a cash-strapped startup, it was especially expensive. And, essentially, we had a component that goes into our product, which we'll talk about, that we needed to solder to a printed circuit board. And soldering is essentially like miniature welding. And our manufacturing partner, they said, this is not something we can do in mass production. It doesn't scale. It won't work. It's going to break. And we told them to try, and they did, and they failed. And then I told them to try again, and they failed again. And then that actually process took 6 months. So in addition to, the $27,000 in lost components, it also was the monthly expenses to run the business for each month of those 6 months that we weren't moving closer to hitting those milestones. But, again, out of that, I really learned the difference between hearing what someone says and listening to them. And that, again, when people have more experience than you and they're trying to tell you something just because it's, inconvenient and maybe a short-term pain, that doesn't mean you should ignore them. And, I think I really learned a lot about expressing my own doubts too and saying to my team, like, hey, they say this, it would mean X, Y, and Z. I was initially thinking we would do that, which would mean A, B, and C, and trying to get more feedback. And then, realize that also, there's going to be more decisions like this, hopefully not as expensive and as time consuming, but just accepting again that like when you're doing something new and you're doing something for the first time, you're bound to make mistakes. Unfortunately, I made the same mistake twice, which, really shows that at the time I wasn't learning. But since that time, we've found a much better way to work together with this manufacturing partner and, have solved that issue and many others.
Since you were in Reveal Your Path, which has been well over a year, it's been a while back since you were in the program, but we've talked about routines, right? You're in the Facebook group with everybody else who's been through Reveal Your Path, 50 some of the guys, men and women, mostly men, but one of the things that we bring up in there a lot is routines and sort of different hacks to improve performance, because everybody wants to, be more productive, get more done, get clear on their goals, take action, stay focused, avoid distractions, right? And that's a little bit about what Ember Labs is working on. But I want you to share something that it was another post that you actually put on LinkedIn and maybe Medium as well. Sort of a biohack that you can use whenever you're facing the day that's just stressful. Maybe the day where you accidentally send 5,000 emails and 200,000 emails go through a survey, through an email server. But it's kind of a biohack that's been pretty neat and that I've used since then. I know some of the other guys in the Reveal Your Path Facebook group have used as well. Can you share what that is?
Yeah, and maybe just before I do, just to step back a little more about what our company does and why this hack is relevant. So at Ember Labs, as Jim mentioned, we're really trying to help people use the power of personalized temperature to feel more comfortable in their own skin. And what specifically we're making is a product called Ember Wave, which is a wristband that actually heats and cools your body directly. So it can help you feel colder or warmer when you need it most. So if you're the type of person who runs too hot or too cold when other people aren't, we can help you feel more comfortable so you can take on anything.
So let's talk about that real quick, and we'll get to the biohack here in a second. But so this is basically, for the listener, this is what I see in it, and I don't know that much about it, but Sam's showed me the website and whatnot, and I've watched some of the press coverage on it. But it looks to me like basically a big Apple Watch that goes on your wrist, of course, and it can help you regulate your temperature or how you feel. How does that actually work?
Yeah, so basically what we've found is that warming and cooling one spot of your body can improve your overall comfort without changing your core temperature. And, one way to think about this is when we're actually uncomfortable, it's really specific parts of our body that are uncomfortable. When I'm cold, for example, it's my hands that are very cold, or my ears that are cold, or my toes. And when I'm warm, it tends to be my face that's warm, or my core. And so what we've found is that if you can kind of give the opposite sensation, so if I'm warm and we can give you a cooling sensation on one part of your body, on your wrist, that can improve your overall comfort. We were actually inspired by the old wives' tale of putting an ice cube on your wrist when you're too hot in the summer.
So that's where this all started, with that old wives' tale.
Yeah, that was we were doing a student project at MIT, and that was kind of our inspiration. We actually thought, hey, if we can do that and we can actually help people be more comfortable, maybe we can help buildings save energy and reduce the need to air condition and heat. And what we actually found, though, is that, while that's still something we're working towards, there's a much more immediate benefit that, when you're uncomfortably warm or uncomfortably cold, your world kind of stops. You can't really focus on participating in the meeting or spending time with your friends or family or paying attention to the movie. And that, if we can make you comfortable again, then you can take on anything.
So at the end of the day, it can essentially make your life better. I mean, if you're more focused and more productive at work, or more present when you're in a meeting or with friends and having a conversation, you can be more present and, in theory, have better conversations, better relationships, etc.
That's our goal. So EMBER actually stands for Environment, Mind, Body, Resonance.
Okay.
And that's really kind of the underpinning belief of the company that technology can and should help us feel more in tune with our physical surroundings, more in tune with our thoughts and emotions, more in tune with our physical body. And it turns out that, temperature actually plays a really important role in that process, and also a role that maybe we don't appreciate as much as we should. For example, I like to ask people to kind of get a sense of, help people realize the important role temperature plays in their life, to just imagine some of your daily routines without the power to control temperature. So a lukewarm shower, that's not a very pleasant experience to start the morning.
Right.
Or, imagine if someone takes your hot coffee, your iced coffee, and swaps it out with a room temperature coffee. So as humans, we actually have these behaviors hardwired into us to go seek out thermal sensations, to seek out warm and cold, whether it's putting your hands by a fire or dunking your toes in water. And, what we've realized as a company is we have some technology that lets you do that in a more compact form factor, so people can take that experience anywhere. So wherever you are, you can have the experience of warming your hands by the fire or dipping your toes in water with a push of a button.
All right, so this thing doesn't necessarily raise or lower your core temperature, right? It's not totally warming or cooling your entire body, but it's giving you the sensation, right? I mean, does this really work to change our entire feeling just by warming or cooling a little spot on our body?
Yes, that's correct, that it doesn't change your core temperature. And, one of the misconceptions people have about temperature is actually that when you're too cold or when you're too warm, it's because your core temperature has changed. What's actually changed is essentially blood flow. So again, what your body's trying to do is maintain a core temperature of 98.6. The only time it really ever changes is when you have a fever. And the way it does that is it adjusts blood flow to your extremities, to your toes, to your face, in order to, heat and cool your core. And so what we found we're able to do is basically affect, kind of both one, your conscious perception of the temperature. So in other words, just like wrapping your hands around a hot cup of coffee, that is, you feel a sensation and that feels pleasant. And then two, that is basically a thermal stimuli to your nervous system. And then that, has its own effects on how you feel at a more unconscious level.
And the only time I can really relate to this in terms of I did a lot of hunting growing up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and it was cold up there, deer hunting and bear hunting. I always remember my dad would tell me, take a hand warmer and put it behind your neck, at the base of your neck, kind of right around your collar. And it was just this one spot where if that spot was warm or cold, my whole body felt warmer or colder. So I can definitely relate. I've had that experience where just sort of a point on your body can really make the rest of your body feel warmer or colder. Maybe we should have just put it on our wrist. That might have been an easier thing. So so love that concept. Love what you're doing. And we're gonna have links for the listener. We're gonna have links in the action plan where you can take a look at it, check it out, and buy the Ember Wave. But I know everybody's on the edge of their seats because we talked about a cool biohack that we love, that I love, that you've done, and other guys in the Facebook group have done. So go ahead and share that now, Sam.
Yeah, so, again, this is basically relating to the idea that you can use temperature to affect how you feel physically and emotionally. And this is a hack called the diving response. And actually, my guess is most listeners have already done it, because if you've ever jumped into a cold lake or a swimming pool, you've experienced it. And it's basically, in non-scientific terms, it's basically just when your body slows down your heart rate when you are submerged in cold water as a way to conserve oxygen. But what's interesting is that actually, in addition to slowing your heart rate, your body also resets emotionally. So you go from an aroused state, like angry or sad or stressed, to a neutral state. And that's basically because when you're underwater without oxygen, your brain is saying, the only thing I should be thinking about is, this present moment, being underwater. And this, again, occurs in all humans. And, luckily, you don't have to submerge yourself in water or jump in a pool to get this. What you can do, and what I do every morning and regularly throughout the day at work, is I basically take a cold ice pack and I basically put it right between my eyes, specifically at the top of the cheekbones. And you kind of just hold it there for 10, 20, 30 seconds while you're holding your breath. And, what you'll experience is a really strong sensation, right under your eyes. And you also kind of feel, you may actually notice your heart rate slowing depending on how kind of perceptive you are. And you kind of feel like your mind kind of goes blank, that, whatever was stressing you out before, whatever made you angry, it just kind of seems like it's in the past. And so, at a startup and, with my own company, things obviously get very stressful and there's a lot you can't control. And this is just one thing I do to try to, help myself get out of negative states when I'm in that. And also, when I'm up in the morning, just kind of like go from 0 to 60 right away and say, go from, groggy to alert and ready to start my day.
You wrote about this in a post, and this is a quote from that post. You said, "I love practicing the diving response at work because it reminds me that we humans have the power to change our emotional and physical states. We don't have to settle for feeling stressed, angry, or other negative states because we can take action. The diving response also shows what a powerful tool temperature is for affecting the way we feel in our daily lives." I think the most interesting part there for me is you mentioned that we have the power to change our emotional and physical states. I mean, this is an action that you can take to change your emotional and physical state in an instant. So it's pretty neat. And for the listener, I will have a link to, there's a short video, it's like less than a minute, of Sam actually doing this. And he has a heart monitor that you can watch while he actually does this. So it's pretty neat. You can actually see his body resetting.
Yeah, and the experience like that and the ways in which you can use temperature to, both when you're in a negative state, come back to being more comfortable. That's really what we're trying to do with the Ember Wave, is give people access to the range of thermal experiences and help them basically use temperature as a tool to improve their own lives.
So I always recommend, or I ask the listener, or ask the guest to recommend an action the listener can take in the next 24 to 48 hours. Is that one that you would recommend, Sam?
Oh, absolutely. What's great is anyone can try it. You can use ice cubes. You can go get a cold gel pack on Amazon for like $10. But, why not start with ice cubes? And, if you're really up for it, tell me how it goes. You can find me and our company on social media. We'll be really excited to engage, or, maybe take a video of it too. It'd be really, really fun to see a lot of people trying the dive and response. And, I'd be excited to see how you guys using it. Once I found out about this, I do this every morning. So one of the first things I do when I get out of bed is, do a dive and response, and, it just really helps me clear my head to start a day.
So where do they find you on social media? Would they tag you let's say if they posted on Twitter, can they tag you?
Yeah. My Twitter is Sam_Shames. Or you could tag our company, which is Ember Labs. So that's EMBR LABS.
And for the listener, I'll have links to that in the action plan. Sam, last couple of questions here. I think I know the answer to this first question. I'm gonna challenge you to give me a second answer. So I've been starting to ask my guests to share a tool that makes them more effective. Maybe it's a technology tool, maybe it's something otherwise. Certainly the Ember Wave is a really cool one that you could probably recommend. People can start using right now. But anything else that you use technology wise or otherwise that just helps you be more effective?
Yeah, well, certainly the Ember Wave, I hope people check out. And, more broadly, I hope people just think about temperature as a tool you can use to be more effective, whether that's cold showers or, hot coffee or anything like that. But in terms of another thing that I do, really old-fashioned, just a paper journal. I try to journal every morning and every evening. And some specific things that I do in my journaling practice. One is just a gratitude practice, which I know a lot of people do. But another one is a timeline, where I try to, at the beginning of every day, really, literally draw like a line and put the hours of the day and think through what am I going to do in each of those hours, and try to divide it up into events and then duration. And what that really does is it forces me to be honest with myself about, how much I'm going to get done. Because, I can say, here's 10 events, but then if each event is, 2 hours long, there's just no way that's happening. And so that I find is super helpful. Just literally, on a piece of paper, drawing a line, putting, the list of events on one side, and then, blocking off the hours or 30-minute intervals and saying, all right, meeting A is a 90-minute meeting, writing up this email, that's going to be a half hour. And what I've particularly found is useful about that is it's very easy, again, to delude ourselves in terms of how long things take, and usually we tend to really underestimate that. And so I find it's just a good way to, especially running an own company, there's a lot of different priorities. It really helps me just think about more carefully about how I'm using my time, and also make sure I'm blocking out time for things like exercise, for, calling my parents and spending time with family, and, just try to have a more holistic, high-level view of, of how I'm using my time.
I love that tactic. I've never heard that before. Is that something you do kind of more when you're overwhelmed, or is that something you do daily, or when do you do that? How often do you do that?
I do that every day. And every day, I do it in the morning. I basically say, if I'm up at 6 or 6:30, I look and say I'm going to be in bed by 10. This is, what I'm doing. I also do it each week. So on a Sunday, I'll do it for kind of the week and try to get that picture. And, what I'm trying to do there is just realize that, if you're only looking in a small interval, it's very unlikely that you're going to be, making the best use of your time overall, and also balancing the many different things. It's very easy when you have your own company to have that be all consuming. But, I think it's important to me personally that I still make time for exercise, that I make time to, spend with my family and friends and, pursue my other hobbies that, ultimately make me a better, co-founder and employee because I'm, feel like I have, other outlets.
And for the listener, as you know, this is just another form of a productive pause, a short period of focused reflection around specific questions. In this case, how am I going to spend my time today? But focus, a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. So you have clarity of action for your day and peace of mind, knowing that you're working on the right things and you have your day planned. So very cool, productive pause, one that I've never heard before, Sam. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to take a photo of an example of a page in my journal, which I'm doing that, and I can share that with you all. It would a few things would make me as happy as seeing other people use this and feeling like it helps them have a better sense of the time in their lives, because ultimately that's the thing we all have.
Yeah, definitely. Could you, if you share that, I'll put that in the action plan as well. I'll just I'll put that right in the action plan. So for the listener, jimharshawjr.com/action, and we'll have a screenshot, a picture of inside Sam's mind, basically. So, so Sam, last question. What about a book? Can you share a favorite book that that has motivated you or inspired you or informed you in a way that that would be worthwhile sharing?
I can. I actually, I want to share two, which is maybe they're sort of different ones. So the first is called The Time Paradox by Philip Zimbardo, Zimbardo. And it's actually where I got the idea of the events and duration. Really powerful book about, really changing the way you think about time, much in a similar way of what we're trying to do with temperature, of taking something that is largely something we, process unconsciously, and realizing that when you think consciously about it, about, the past, the present, and the future, and what do those mean to you, you can have a much more balanced life. And then the other one is a book called Linchpin by Seth Godin. Yeah. And Linchpin is just an amazing book for overcoming imposter syndrome and taking action and realizing that, there's something inside all of us that we can give to the world and leave it a better place, and giving you, really a lot of the motivation and the tactics you need to get started.
Excellent. For the listener, we'll have links to both of those in the action plan. Again, I've said that ad nauseum, I think, this episode, jimharshawjr.com/action. Sam, take a minute, promote yourself, promote your company. How can we find you, follow you, etc.?
Yeah, well, we launched our Kickstarter for Ember Wave on September 27th, so it's going on now, and I would really appreciate it if you guys take a moment to check that out. You can go to emberwave.com, that's EMBR wave.com, and that'll just redirect. So, please take a look at that and consider supporting us and, and backing our product. And, more generally, I hope that, you guys take a moment, maybe do a productive pause to think about what role temperature plays in your life, whether you're always comfortable and it's something you don't have to think about and maybe appreciate that a little more, or it's maybe a source of pain for you, in which case, I hope you can find a way to take action to do something about that.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sam, for making time to come on the show in the middle of the launch here.
It's my pleasure, Jim, and thank you for having me, and really appreciate what you do.
For the listener, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.